Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Andrew Moran, Sarah Cowgill, Dave Patterson, Scott Cosenza, and Graham Noble. For the year-end special, we've added a twist. For today only, we shall be called the Conservative Six, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. The Democrats have been lingering around the hallowed halls of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for less than a year now. And so it begs the question, what's been accomplished? Well, historic inflation highs and embarrassingly low approval ratings, and not a lot else, seem to be the answer. The Biden agenda has battled for Build Back Better, amnesty for illegal aliens, and election reform, to which our own Graham Noble calls, quote, ensuring Democrats never lose again, end quote. Pundits say this lack of progress could send a signal, a red tsunami come 2022 midterms. Democrats are posturing with the stiff upper lip while conservatives are plotting for big wins across the board. Liberty Nation's chief political correspondent, Graham J. Noble, has an idea of what went wrong and where Dems might go in 2022. Graham, please regale us with your wit and wisdom.
Well, Lisa, I think Democrats would say what really went wrong is just having too many of those pesky Republicans in Congress. Overall, I think it might have been better for the American people if all Congress had passed this year was gas. And I do intend to reach out to the office of Representative Eric Swalwell to ask him how much gas was passed this year and how much of it was his. But here's a rundown of the three pieces. Here's a rundown of the three pieces of legislation that are still in the works, but that would have the most significant effect on America's cultural, political, and economic future. We got the For the People Act of 2021, which, yes, I call the Ensuring Democrats Never Lose Again Act. In broad terms, it's a federal government takeover of elections, and personally, I can't think of any greater threat to election integrity. Next, well, with that one, Democrats didn't waste any time, by the way, because they introduced that on January 4th of 2021. Every Republican voted against it. Every Democrat voted for it, with one courageous exception. Representative Benny Thompson of the great state of Mississippi, which I now call home, actually voted no. That bill is currently in a holding pattern in the Senate, which may be for better or worse. The US Citizenship Act of 2021, that's another one. Essentially, this is blanket amnesty for illegals. I like to call this the Allowing Illegals to Vote Democrat Act. It was introduced in February. Again, they didn't waste any time, and that's still in committee. And lastly, Build Back Better, what's commonly known as the Build Back Better Act. I like to call it the grubby little socialist fingers in everything act. This monstrosity affects everything from education, healthcare, and taxes to immigration and environmental policy. It was introduced in the House in September. It passed, and it has gone off to the Senate. No Republicans voted for it, but 2 Democrats did vote against it. That's it, Lisa.
Well, Graham loaded his legislative Gatling gun there, Dave. Actually, I want to have Sarah take this on. It's interesting because what we've noticed lately in polls is that Latin vote that the Democrats are so counting on, they're starting to be a little shifty there. What do you say, Sarah?
It's funny. Any either naturalized Hispanic or people who have come here legally and gotten their citizenship, they do not appreciate the illegal alien argument of just let open the doors. They did it the right way. They've been here forever. They're Americans. They don't want to see their own world compromised by where they might have come from 200 or 300 or 400 years ago or last year. It's interesting to see that the Hispanics are turning red almost to the number like say, the Cubans did in Miami. Yeah. It's a big number. And the Democrats just don't have that support anymore. You can't count on that.
Yeah. Dave, do you feel that there was any legislative headway made in the area of military affairs, or any that should have been made, or maybe
Well, I
less
think
is more.
at least I think we've experienced what we have experienced almost now historically, and that is that the congressional legislators do not do their job. We only ask them to do one thing, pass a budget, and they have failed to do that repeatedly. You have an authorization bill that passes in the last of the first quarter of the next year. You have an appropriations bill that has yet to be passed. They only have one thing to do, and they're supposed to get it done before September 30th, and they have failed to do that continually. In fact, the exception is when they do pass a budget, and that is extremely hurtful to the Department of Defense. If they had a full year appropriation or continuing resolution this year, it would cost the Department of Defense $40 billion, almost as much as the Festivus bill.
You know, Andrew, I'm wondering if your libertarian bones are rattling when it comes to, passing budgets and everything. Maybe you're in the camp of no, don't pass. Stay, less you do, the better.
Yeah, of course, because one of the main problems with all these budgets is the government does too much. There's too much governance going on. That's why you have these $6 trillion bills. And this isn't just the federal government. All the state and many of the state and local governments do the exact same thing. They spend all this money. There isn't any plan. They just will throw money at the problem. And so that's one of the main issues. And we just discussed all this interventionism going on in the previous segment at home and abroad. You have all this just wasting money, throwing money around because it's not their money, so they don't care. And then, but the other thing too is that they're irresponsible about it as well when they do pass these budgets. Because look at the debt, for instance. The debt to taxpayer is about $20,000 per taxpayer, $20,000, and then you have the interest per adult. I think that's about $14,000. So right there, you have tens of thousands of dollars that taxpayers on hook for all this wasted spending, and a lot of this spending that they were even alive to see. And a lot of this money, a lot of this debt occurred in the 70s and the 80s, 90s. So these generations of future generations are going to be stuck with the bill. I've always said that you can't kick the can down the road any further, but I think politicians have mastered the art of doing that because they're able to get away with it and nothing happens. The US dollar, I mean, that's still a strong currency. It's still the international reserve currency of the world. The US dollar index, which is a basket of currencies, and it surged 7% this year. And why? There's no justification for it. There's just everyone else is incompetent. So people think that, hey, the United States government is the least incompetent institution in the world.
Yeah. I personally think a big hit was that, Manchin held back the big Build Back Better, which I think would have been just a disaster, not just monetarily, but also, digging into our personal bank account, just too much. It was just too broad ranging. It was another one of those, you have to pass it to understand it things, which is ridiculous. Scott, any final legislative hits and misses in your estimation?
Well, when you consider that the administration achieved these accomplishments with the first ever woman vice president, a Canadian, Caribbean, Californian, I mean, it's you have to say that they had to work twice as hard to accomplish half as much. So hats off to them.
Well, are we experiencing stagnation without representation? How long will Americans put up with a do-nothing government? But maybe that's a good thing. We've got our thumb on the pulse, so stay tuned to Liberty Nation News. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $29.99 per year. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank DiOrio, and our amazing executive producer, Sarah Cowgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.